Welcome. This will be the first video of this channel. So if you haven't seen the channel trailer, my name is Anil and I break down leadership ideas from top podcasts and thought leaders. I concentrate on what really works, what doesn't, and why. I try to stick to one takeaway in order to provide focused value. I wanted to dive into the first video of the channel with a favorite area of mine, which is executive presence. This has been coming up in recent years in my coaching. People have been requesting to work on this for some time. And when many people are requesting this and we start working on it, of course we go deeper and we start to find different resources. And I was very happy to come across Muriel Wilkins' book. So who is Muriel Wilkins? Well, she's a coach, a leadership coach, just like me, and she has co-written the book Own the Room, Discover Your Signature Voice. Today, the podcast that we will be looking at is a podcast where she is the guest and she talks about executive presence. I can say that the approach that she brings is a breath of fresh air because over the years, most people have just talked about executive presence as like charisma or the way you dress or the way you enter the room and similar things of that nature. And while these are not totally wrong, they are only maybe a part of the picture. The way Muriel frames this concept, executive presence, is very, very powerful. Today, I'm going to provide my one takeaway from the podcast, which I also believe is the one takeaway from the book, actually. I would definitely first recommend to listen to the podcast, and all the links will be down below in the description. And then buy the book, read the book, and then maybe listen to the podcast once again, just to make sure to get the things right. Because when you hear things from the author directly, it can have a different perspective to what you were reading and understanding. So with that being said, let me start with the key takeaway of this podcast episode. The main key takeaway is the ACE model as is described in the book. What is the ACE model? ACE model is a model where three components make up executive presence. These are assumptions, communication, and energy. So what are these? Assumptions are beliefs you hold about yourself and your role, as well as beliefs about others and the situations that are surrounding you. So these assumptions act as a mental conditioning that forms the fabric of your reality that can either set you up for success or undermine your best efforts. Communication is about your communication styles, specifically representing the strategies and tools you use to engage, influence, and inspire others. Energy is your body language and or vibe or tone that you are bringing, encompassing your physical presence and the non-verbal cues people interpret to make judgments about you. So I'd like to go a little bit deeper on this ACE. So I'm going to share the screen to the presentation I prepared. Just 1 second. I'll put myself at the bottom. Yep. And here it goes. Yep. So assumptions are broadly defined as the beliefs about yourself and others and about the situations that surround you. So these underlying beliefs act as the mental conditioning, as I had mentioned. So these are what forms the foundation of your reality. And so maybe let's look at some the examples. So if you find yourself thinking, I'm just a functional expert, you should reset this assumption and reframe your role as a strategic partner to the business to increase your voice for self and assert yourself at a more senior level. So this is actually a similar example to what was brought up in the book. Now let's continue with the communication side. As I had mentioned, communication strategies are techniques and tools you use to engage, influence, and inspire others. So let's look at the example here. To advocate effectively and be seen as an advisor, use the technique of structured advocacy by always communicating the bottom line upfront. So basically, you should say your main point or give your recommendation initially and then support it with details. Because if you don't, then when you go in straight with the details, it's just going to throw people off, and your executive presence, your perception is going to be seen differently. And lastly, energy. Energy is the physical conditioning that helps you manage the impact of your nonverbal cues and emotions on others. So, this is your physical presence, your body language, the tone or the mood that you convey, right? And this is actually has a big impact on how you are seen or heard during a conversation. So, when you feel tension, impatience, or annoyance, you can get back to your calm self or aware self by focusing on physical cues like anchoring your foot in the floor, or taking a deep breath, or just going back to your body, like going back to your bodily sensations. It will bring you back. So I'm going to stop sharing now, and let's see, stop sharing. And let's look at how we can work these. How can we practice these? The way to practice these are to set an intention. So every week before we go into important meetings or dialogues, we should set an intention to understand what our assumptions are for those meetings, how we are going to communicate, and how we should comport ourselves, how we should provide our energy, our body language, how it should it be. Now, some people that I work with, they prepare beforehand and then practice in the meetings. And some people, they like to just go with it and then look back and learn from any mistakes they have made. Both styles can work. These things that I have just been explaining are not part of the podcast or part of the book. This is from my experience and from my experience of working with other people. So there you have it. This podcast, Executive Presence, there's a lot of other very, very valuable information mentioned in the podcast, but this was the one main takeaway. I would invite you to listen to all of the podcast and also buy the book. And yeah, so that's one key takeaway from this video, for the first video. And I hope to see you in the next one. Thank you.